All right, welcome back to session number 2 of topic 8, sustainability. So this time we're going to talk about sustainable consumption. And just to remind you again, 8.1 was about big picture. Now we're going to be talking a little bit more, focusing on the consumers. What consumers can do to affect design of products, and then also some strategies that designers and manufacturers and companies can do to help the consumers out. Okay, so 8.5, if you want to have a look, here's these kind of concepts and principles. So you can press pause and have a read through. Same thing too, here's another kind of important points that we'll be going over in this topic. So again, press pause and have a read through. Okay, so we've heard of some of these things before, especially this one. We've talked about consumers. So these different types of consumers, from eco-warriors down to eco-phobes, people who are scared and don't agree with environmental protection programs and these types of things. So here's kind of a definition of these types of consumers, and there's a question about how you define yourself. So try to answer that one in the form. Okay, remember this one is 2.5. We've seen this before, it's not new, but it's just a way to label people in their considerations for the environment. Other types of consumers is ethical consumers. So this is just consumers understand the ethics behind this is that social aspect of the triple bottom line. So where this is considering the ways the social environment damage, you're understanding ethical impacts of the actual product. So things like blood diamonds, where certain products come from, underpaid, or poor working conditions. So making sure that whenever you buy something, whenever this consumer consumes the actual product, they're considering things that minimize these social effects and damages on the environment. So that's what an ethical consumer is. Okay, so that's ethical consumers. Another kind of label is this is a little bit of a part of it, but it's this consumer lifestyle. So mostly this happens in North America and in Europe too, as well, everywhere really. But this consumer lifestyle is just this ideology of thinking about how to consume and get more and more and more, bigger car, bigger house, bigger, etc. So all of that is about this lifestyle of consumer lifestyles. So that's just this idea, and really what we're ultimately trying to get to is try to reducing our consumptions or being very conscious consumers. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well too. Okay. Another label is these pressure groups. So this is less about the individual and more about a group now. And so Greenpeace, for example, is an NGO that promotes green and sustainable and environmental protection. And they specifically say is they create consumer pressure. So they're trying to change consumers and like give pressure on those consumers to make conscious decisions about their products, okay, or about not their products. They don't make products. They're just an NGO. But that's what these pressure groups do, is they kind of pressure the consumer into making these better decisions. Because sometimes people can pressure them into making bad decisions, but the goal for this is pressuring them into making good decisions. So what these pressure groups can do is they can actually have protests. So here's like a guy sitting in a tree to kind of bring to light some of the negative effects of the environment or companies that are doing, so they can have protests. They can also request reports, or sometimes some of these individual agencies create reports on different products. So here's like a CO2 level of a particular product over a certain amount of years. So they can actually create some of these reports. And another thing they can make, give consumers a lot of consciousness. This is a video from Greenpeace. You can watch this, where it kind of explains to the consumers how much of these rare metals are in the iPhones. So that's what these people can do to kind of influence change and get people to help make appropriate decisions based on the different technologies or based on the green designs that are out there. So that's what these pressure groups can do. They can also use social media. So other ways that they can kind of, I don't want to say coerce, but they can pressure other people into making decisions is through social media and other types of media. For example, there was a big spill by British Petroleum Company, and they actually had like a rebrand, the BP logo campaign. So where people were rebranding it, this oil spill, and it's all bad against the earth. And so here's what they were trying to do to kind of, this is the media that they did. So other things that they can do. And even because of that, it actually, BP stocks plummeted or went down quite a lot after the spill. So see how it was way up here, it went down, and then it started going slowly back up again. But it affects the actual stocks, and this is affecting the consumers. They also have, there's a boycott BP Facebook page. So there's all these types of things that these pressure groups, not just individuals, but pressure groups can do to kind of get consumers more aware and more conscious of their actual, of the products. So, also, people are becoming more and more and more aware of these things. Social media, Greenpeace is a big one. Even Starbucks has some power that they're able to do to affect media. I remember this was quite a while ago, but these red cups were quite controversial. One of your first tasks, or one of the tasks, is I want you to try to find an example of some of these consumer power and these pressures and how they can actually affect and change the companies into doing something different. Okay, so try to have a look and see what you can find, and put a link and a little bit of a description in there. Okay, here's another. This example is Friends of the Earth and some advantages and disadvantages. So it's really, really good, can make a big difference, but they're actually not part of the government legislation, and they can't really change the people or change some organizations. It's just this kind of pressure group. But they are able to express lots of ideas and opinions, and they don't have the same type of restrictions that some governments have. So that's the biggest benefit of these consumer groups. Okay, so that's a bit of a list of what those consumers are, these pressure groups, and what they can do. And now the last part is about strategy. So what do some people require, but also how can these companies, what strategies they can do to inform the consumers of their environmental awareness or action. So the first one, that's a really simple one, is eco-labeling. So here there's energy labeling, which is a little bit different. So this is this energy usage, but then also there's eco-labels that say, environmental choice, EPA protection, EPA agency, green label, green certified, eco label. So there's all these kind of little stamps of approval, and there's a couple of more, or there's quite a few more. So again, what I want you to try to do is look around your house and see if you can find an example of a product with either the energy label or the eco label on it. Take a picture and upload that to the form. All right. So these are ways just to kind of make the consumers aware of what they're buying, and so then they can actually look and see, oh, this product has this eco label, I'm going to buy that, rather than buying the product that doesn't have the eco label. I know I've bought some. It's like a Nutella brand, but it's actually not Nutella. It's a Spanish brand, and it says without palm. It's like certified, no palm oils. So I bought that one because on the label it actually kind of made me aware of my environmental, what I'm doing to the environment. So I didn't want to use that palm oil, and that's why I bought that one instead of Nutella. So little things like that, see what you can find, just to make yourself aware and be able to compare and look in different products. Okay, so find an example, take a picture, and upload it. Then there's other little points and parts that companies should consider. So strategies that companies should consider is the actual prices. So often organic foods are more expensive. So how can they actually reduce the costs? How can you create more demand? So again, making that product more appealing, and then making sure that they're just producing these green products. So again, this Patagonia has these footprint articles where you can find out and see, and letting the consumers be more aware of the impacts in their purchasing. So same thing, this is don't buy the jacket, don't buy a new one. You can buy old ones. Why are you going to buy a new one? So a lot of that's about being a consumer consciousness. Okay, and then the last things, we've seen this again before, so I won't go over it too much, but that take-back legislation. Remember, some companies require that, some states require that, or governments require that. So this is the last part of strategies, just to make the consumers more aware, and that that manufacturers can do to promote sustainable consumption. Okay, so that's that one. You've got a form to fill out, and it's just, again, you've recognized these, you've seen these before. There's just a few more terms, a little bit more concepts, but I don't think this is unfamiliar to you. So just spend a little bit of time, have a look through, make sure you answer the questions, and all's good. Thank you. See you soon.